Did you ever wondered what would happen if the Upper Moon demons were reborn with their memories? What would they do this time? Would they avoid the choices that turn them into demons? Or would some of them fall into the same darkness all over again? Well, let's begin with Upper Moon 6, Gyutaro and Daki. In this new timeline, Gyutaro and Daki are born exactly the same way as before, but this time, the moment they take their first breaths, they're already aware of how their life played out. Gyutaro first remembers how he was killed during his last battle. A moment of regret overwhelms him, and then he remembers how he grew up being bullied, starving, and crawling through trash just to survive. He remembers carrying his baby sister Daki through the streets while people insulted him. He remembers eating insects, fighting with a broken sickle, and waking up every day hated by the world. Because Gyutaro is 13 years older than his sister, he would patiently wait for his sister to be born, soaking up all the childhood trauma, all the while plotting how to make their lives better this time. After 13 years of silent scheming, Daki is born. She too remembers everything, every painful second. She remembers the fear of being helpless, the anger at the samurai, and the moment her life ended in flames. 300 years of cruelty and bloodshed. She remembers the final moment she and Gyutaro died together, regretting everything. So when these two are reborn and reunited, they look at their new childhood very differently. They are still poor, they are still surrounded by danger, but this time they know the traps waiting for them in the future. They know the exact moment their lives fall apart, and they know how to stop it. Gyutaro grows up quietly, refusing to fight for money like before. He avoids the violent path that made him enemies everywhere. Instead, he spends most of his time caring for Daki and watching the samurai and nobles from a distance, studying them. With his memories, he understands how power works in this world. He knows that if he can stay away from trouble, especially with samurai, he can change everything. Daki, even as a child, is smarter. She remembers the pressure of being beautiful and the danger that came with it. So when men approach her, she acts politely but coldly. She avoids the brothels and the attention it brings. She also avoids the moment where she stabs that samurai and triggers the tragedy that ruined their lives forever. And the biggest shift happens on that one important day. Daki already knows what will happen if she reacts. She knows that anger will cost her life. She knows that samurai can kill anyone without consequences. So when the same insult comes, the insult toward Gyutaro and his appearance, Daki chooses silence. The samurai never attacks her. The brothel never burns her. And Gyutaro never has to kill anyone that night. Because of this single choice, their entire future changes. Doma never finds them dying in the snow. Muzan never hears of them. The entertainment district never gains its deadly Upper Moon guardians. The entire entertainment district arc never happens. Since Gyutaro and Daki never become demons, Tengen Uzui never fights them. He never loses his arm. He never retires early. The Sound Hashira continues working for years longer, and the Demon Slayer Corps remains stronger. Gyutaro and Daki grow up to live quiet, normal lives. They never gain demon powers, but they also never gain demon hunger. Gyutaro becomes a protective older brother with sharp instincts. Daki becomes a determined young woman who refuses to walk the path that once killed her. They remain poor, but they remain human. And because they kept their memories, they avoided every mistake that once ruined them. But while the twins rebuild their future, can the same be said for their successor, the new Upper Moon 6, Kaigaku? Just like Gyutaro and Daki, Kaigaku is reborn with his memories. He remembers everything. Being a starving orphan, stealing money to survive, being chased out by the other children, and accidentally letting a demon into the temple. In his past life, this mistake caused every child except one to die. As a child in this new timeline, Kaigaku wakes up with that memory burned into his mind. So even when he is young, he chooses differently. Instead of stealing money from the temple, Kaigaku avoids the storage rooms entirely. He trains his body, wakes early, and watches the wisteria flowers, never touching them, knowing they're the barrier that once protected everyone. Because of this, the demon never enters the temple. The orphans live. But even with these changes, the dangerous parts of Kaigaku stay the same. He remembers Zenitsu killing him in their past life. He remembers Jikoto's disappointment. Most of all, he remembers that he became a demon because he was weak. So in this new timeline, Kaigaku becomes obsessed with one thing, never letting history repeat itself. He trains harder than any student Jikoto ever had. He practices every form of thunder breathing again and again. He refuses to run, refuses to cry, and refuses to show weakness. He knows the exact moment Kokushibo appeared and treats it like a cursed site he must never touch. Because of this, Kaigaku never becomes a demon. Instead, he becomes stronger as a human. He still hates Zenitsu, maybe even more than before, but this time that hatred turns into motivation. Kaigaku decides to master the first form of thunder breathing no matter what. He doesn't care how long it takes. thanks to this, his rivalry with Zenitsu only grows stronger. He now knows to avoid his past pitfalls, but he's still the same cunning person as always. Because he knows everything about his rival, Kaigaku will likely do everything in his power to sabotage Zenitsu's progress, and ensure that he becomes the successor of the Thunder Breathing. While Kaigaku fights to change his fate as a human, someone else is reborn with absolutely no desire to avoid darkness. Upper Moon 5, Gyokko, once known as Manaji, a lonely boy living near a fisherman village. He awakens as a baby with every twisted memory of his first life, and from the moment he can think, he remembers drowning corpses. He remembers the feeling of beauty he once saw in death. Unlike other Upper Moons who carry regrets, Gyokko feels none. His memories do not make him kinder, instead they make him worse. As a child in this new timeline, Gyokko returns to his old habits early. He still lives alone in the outskirts of the village, and the people still avoid him. They whisper that he is strange. They avoid his home and warn their children not to approach him. But this time, Gyokko enjoys it. He knows the moment he will kill. He knows the moment Muzan will arrive. So instead of being afraid, he prepares. He starts creating art, even earlier than before. He places them in jars the same way he once placed human bodies. When villagers become suspicious, he doesn't panic. He remembers everything that will happen. In the original timeline, Gyokko's fragile pride is exposed when he had been teased by a child. Thanks to this, he sought revenge by murdering the child and stuffing his corpse in a vase. But this time, he doesn't wait for the child to tease him. He attacks first. One night, the village wakes up to screams. A child disappears. A jar is found outside their home. Everyone knows who did it, but no one can prove it. The hatred they once held for Gyokko grows even stronger. And just like before, the villagers come for him with knives and torches. But unlike before, Gyokko is ready. He knows where to run, and he knows exactly when Muzan will appear. For Muzan, this moment is a strange sight. The boy he once found dying in the snow is now waiting for him, smiling. Gyokko kneels and begs for demon blood. He explains in detail every future plan he has, describing the swordsmith village, the weakness of the Demon Slayer Corps, and the best ways to kill Hashira. Muzan listens carefully. A child with this much information is too useful to ignore, so Muzan gives him even more power than before. Gyokko becomes a demon at a younger age. He grows stronger faster, and worst of all, he begins creating new art pieces earlier. Human bodies arranged into sculptures, organs placed in jars, limbs sewn together in patterns only he finds beautiful. Because Gyokko has memories of the future, he also knows something very important. He knows about the Demon Slayer swordsmiths. In this new timeline, Gyokko doesn't wait for Muzan to send him there. Instead, he spends years preparing information about the swordsmith village, secretly following visitors who travel between towns and watching for clues. This changes the timeline heavily. In the original world, the swordsmith village survives until late in the story, but in this timeline, Gyokko reports everything to Muzan far earlier, giving him exact locations and numbers. He tells Muzan which swordsmiths are the most skilled. Because of his memories, Gyokko becomes one of Muzan's most dangerous informants. As a result, Muzan moves earlier. He makes more demons. He orders more attacks. The balance between demons and slayers changes drastically before Tanjiro is even born. Gyokko happily watches the world bend around his predictions. He enjoys every moment. And because he enters the story sooner, he affects the lives of many more slayers than he originally did. While Gyokko rises in power with twisted excitement, another Upper Moon awakens with memories, but with a very different personality. Upper Moon 4, Hantengu, opens his eyes in terror. He remembers everything from his first life, every crime, every accusation, every lie, and he remembers becoming a demon because of fear, not desire. But most importantly, he remembers the moment he died. And now, reborn as a human baby with all of this inside him, he becomes even worse. Unlike Yutaro, who learns from his trauma, Hantengu learns nothing. He doesn't want redemption, he doesn't want peace. He wants safety. He wants to hide. But with his memories, he becomes more manipulative than ever. As a child, Hantengu tries to behave, but his fear controls him. He avoids being alone. He avoids being outdoors. He becomes an expert manipulator at a young age, using his small size and weak appearance to avoid punishment for his actions. And like Gyokko, Hantengu still chooses to become a demon, because deep inside his heart, he enjoys having other people die instead of him. But this time, when Muzan offers his blood, Hantengu doesn't accept because he wants strength. He accepts because he remembers that demonhood is the only way he ever escaped death. With memories of the future, Hantengu becomes extremely dangerous. He knows that as long as his tiny core body survives, he cannot die. Because of this, Hantengu becomes impossible to track. He hides for decades, feeding in secret, dividing turning into smaller and smaller clones to avoid detection. Muzan becomes annoyed with his cowardice, but Hantengu provides something extremely important: information. Like Gyokko, Hantengu remembers everything about the future Demon Slayer Corps. He remembers Tanjiro, Muichiro, and Genya. He remembers the Swordsmith Village battle, the Hashira, and all the routes, locations, and hidden bases. So while Gyokko provides Muzan with information about the swordsmiths, Hantengu provides information about the future Slayers themselves, or their ancestors. This means Muzan begins hunting Hashira families earlier. He tries to target people connected to the Flame Hashira line, the Mist Hashira line, and even the Shinobu and Kanae sisters' family. The attacks come decades earlier than expected. The Demon Slayer Corps enters crisis long before the main story ever begins. And while Hantengu hides in the shadows doing everything he can to avoid danger, the world becomes more dangerous because of him. Thanks to Gyokko and Hantengu being reborn and remembering everything, Muzan's empire becomes stronger far earlier. Gyokko gives him strategic knowledge. Hantengu gives him survival and infiltration knowledge. Together, they help Muzan move faster toward his goal. This creates tension among the upper moons. The rankings shift. New demons rise. Old demons fall. Muzan experiments more often. He becomes much more paranoid, and even more so dangerous. This brings us to Hantengu's successor, Nakime. In the original timeline, Nakime started as a struggling biwa player. Her husband was a gambler who stole her only good kimono right before a show. Desperate and ashamed, she killed him with a hammer, then went on stage in rags. She was an anxious wreck, but the crowd loved her trembling hands. But now that Nakime is reborn, things wouldn't go the exact same way it did before. The key difference is choice. In the original, she accepted Muzan without questioning the cost of being useful, but owned by someone else. In this timeline, she remembers the moment she lost freedom and the long years of being a tool. So each major beat in her life shifts because she acts with foresight. Originally, the kimono theft pushed her instantly to murder. Now with memory, she still faces the same humiliation, but she thinks in steps. She still learns the biwa and produces that same eerie, beautiful sound because the music is in her. The difference is she avoids the flash kill ritual that tied her art to blood. Instead of killing to refine her sound, she experiments with silence, restraint, and musical techniques that produce the same effect without spilling light. She practices ways to widen the emotional range of her playing so applause can follow without murder. That small change prevents her first irreversible descent into becoming a compulsive killer. In the original timeline, Muzan appears, and the offer is immediate. In the new timeline, since Nakime doesn't need to resort to killing anymore, she has no reason to meet Muzan, and she can go on with her life as an established musician. Because Nakime never kills again, Muzan never notices her. She may still be cold, distant, and withdrawn, but she is free. And because Nakime never becomes a demon, countless events in the original timeline simply never happen. There is no Infinity Castle, constantly shifting and rearranging itself. Muzan never gains a personal domain that bends space at his will. The 12 Kizuki lose one of their greatest strategic advantages. Demons can no longer be teleported instantly across the country. Lower moons are forced to travel normally, making them easier to track and eliminate. Upper moons can no longer retreat at will when battles turn against them. During the final arc, there is no Infinity Castle battle. The Demon Slayer Corps never gets dragged into a nightmarish, disorienting maze. Instead, Muzan is forced to fight in the open. Without Nakime's castle separating the fighters, many deaths would never occur. Most importantly, Muzan himself becomes weaker in the long run. Without Nakime's surveillance, he does not have perfect information. He cannot see everything. He cannot control every battlefield. This brings us to Upper Moon 3, Akaza, whose backstory is even more tragic. And quite frankly, his decision could swing either way. In his dying moments, Akaza regretted everything, but his experience with humans could make him easily choose to stay a demon. Akaza is reborn with all his memories intact. In the original timeline, he began life as Hakuji, a poor boy who stole to buy medicine for his sick father. Now, in this new timeline, everything is different. Because Hakuji remembers his entire life, including his future as Akaza, he grows up unable to ignore the warnings running through his mind. He remembers losing his father. He remembers Koyuki's death. He remembers the day Muzan approached him, and most of all, he remembers his final moment as a demon, when he cried, regretting everything he had done. This time, he refuses to let any of that happen. While he is still a child, he stops stealing no matter how desperate he becomes, because he now knows it leads to tragedy. He works harder, searching for honest ways to get medicine for his father, and his effort pays off. He earns just enough to keep him alive longer, and because he avoids stealing, he is not arrested, tattooed, or banished. Thanks to this, his father has no motivation to commit suicide, and long enough to tell his son that he's proud of him. This would cement Hakuji's decision to turn a new leaf. Later, when When Hakuji meets Kaizo, the dojo leader who changed his life, he throws himself into training with purpose. He knows how strong he can become in the future because he has already lived it. But the strength he seeks now is different. Before, he fought out of anger and pain. Now, he fights to protect the peace he knows he almost lost forever. He meets Koyuki again. She is still the sick, gentle girl he remembered, and he treats her with even more care, knowing she is the future wife he never got to protect. In the original timeline, a rival dojo poisoned Koyuki and Kaizo, but now Hakuji watches for the signs he missed before. He is wary of the rival students, and when the day approaches, he stays near the house, refusing to leave them alone. When he spots the rival dojo head approaching with a water jug, the memories crash into him like a wave. So he acts first. He warns Kaizo, confronting the rival dojo head instead of losing control and falling into despair. He exposes the plan before anyone dies, and the rival dojo head is arrested, leaving, and Koyuki and Kaizo continue living in peace. Because this moment changes, the rest of Hakuji's life changes too. There is no massacre of 67 men, no rage-filled rampage, no moment of despair where Muzan approaches him, no transformation into a demon. Akaza never exists in this timeline, because he avoids the street where Muzan finds him. He avoids the future where he kills Rengoku, and the future where he regrets everything he has ever done. This choice creates ripple effects across the story. Thanks to this, there is no Mugen Train tragedy. Rengoku survives, and Muzan loses one of his most powerful upper moons before he is even created. Hakuji becomes a legendary martial artist, one who spreads Kaizo's teachings, a man who lives for honor, strength, and protection, not slaughter. While Akaza's memories saved him from the darkest version of himself, the same cannot be said for upper rank 2 Doma. Doma's rebirth is completely different from Akaza's. While Akaza is shaped by regret and pain, Doma has something else entirely inside him: emptiness. In the original timeline, Doma was born with rainbow-colored eyes and white hair. People believed he was blessed by the gods. They treated him as a divine child, placing all their hopes on him. But even as he watched his mother kill his father and commit suicide in front of him, he felt nothing. Just annoyance at the mess and the smell of blood. Doma grew up emotionless, treating human suffering like a puzzle rather than something that mattered. When Muzan found him at 20 years old, Doma didn't become a demon out of pain. He did it because it was interesting. So what happens when someone like this is reborn with all his memories? For Doma, nothing changes emotionally, but everything changes strategically. The moment he opens his eyes as a baby, he remembers his cult, his boredom, his endless killings, his clash with Kanao and Inosuke, his failure to detect Shinobu's poison, and his sudden, surprising moment of emotion after death. He remembers that he almost felt love, but because he does not truly understand emotions, this memory becomes an obsession rather than a lesson. He wants to feel it again, feel anything, and that obsession leads him straight back to Muzan. In this new timeline, Doma behaves exactly the same in most ways because his motivations haven't changed. He still sees humans as tools. He still forms a cult when he grows older, but unlike the original version of Doma, who casually killed and experimented, this Doma has a goal. He wants to reach that almost moment again, the feeling he experienced right before he died, the moment he thought he felt his heartbeat. He believes evolving as a demon will help him reach it sooner. So Doma actively seeks Muzan out, remembering exactly how he became upper rank 2 in his past life. In the original timeline, he was already powerful, but now, with full memory of every technique, he becomes even more monstrous. So in this new life, Doma trains his body to counter poison from childhood. He develops resistance to toxins long before becoming a demon, making him almost impossible to poison once he transforms. He also remembers Inosuke's wild unpredictability and Kanao's deadly precision. These memories push him to refine his own techniques. He evolves his cryokinesis faster, his clones become more efficient, and his ice mist becomes deadlier. And finally, he becomes upper rank 2 much earlier than before. But there is a major twist in this new timeline. Doma remembers that Akaza rejected eating women and refused to surpass him. He remembers teasing him. He remembers their rivalry. Most importantly, he remembers how Akaza's death felt, and the strange moment where Doma thought he felt sadness. This time, Doma seeks out Akaza early, but he meets no one. Akaza doesn't exist. This confuses Doma. It fascinates him. For the first time, he finds a situation he cannot explain, and that small, tiny frustration begins cracking the empty space inside him. Because Sakuji would be long dead by the time Doma becomes a demon, Doma channels his frustration onto something else. He spreads his cult further, recruits more followers, and becomes even more efficient at hiding from the Demon Slayer Corps. He evolves into an even more terrifying upper rank than before. His memories only make him smarter, sharper, and more obsessed with understanding emotions. So when Shinobu faces him again in this timeline, she'd be facing a demon who studied her methods and prepared for them years in advance. It would be a massacre, and this time, Shinobu's sacrifice won't be enough, unless the presence of a still-alive Rengoku, a stronger Tanjiro, and more confident Hashira changes the battlefield. And that brings us to Upper Rank 1, Kokushibo. While Doma's rebirth creates a colder and far more dangerous monster, the final Upper Moon faces something completely different. In his original life, Kokushibo was born as Michikatsu Tsukikuni, the twin brother of Yoriichi. Michikatsu spent his whole life chasing a shadow he could never catch. He loved his brother, admired him, but also envied him so deeply that it slowly twisted his heart. But in this alternate timeline, everything changes the moment he opens his eyes as a newborn and remembers all 400 years of failure. As a child, Michikatsu became unusually serious. Even though he is young, he understands his future clearly, and he fears repeating it. His memories warn him of every wrong step he once took. He knows the moment his jealousy first bloomed, and because he knows all of this, he works hard to change it. Instead of competing with Yoriichi, he focuses on honing his own skills. Because he knows of the tragedy of their household, how their mother died, and how their father strived to separate them, his bond with his brother naturally becomes stronger than before. He trains hard, pushing his body and mind with everything he has. Not out of jealousy this time, but out of discipline. He wants to be a warrior worthy of standing beside his brother, not behind him. In the original timeline, fear drove him into Muzan's arms. The terror of dying before reaching Yoriichi's strength led him down the darkest path. But this time, Michikatsu already knows exactly who Muzan is and what he will become. He knows the exact year Muzan will appear before him. He prepares long before it happens. He trains harder than any samurai in their clan. He studies every memory of Muzan's abilities, his speed and shifting forms. And when the time finally comes, he doesn't face this danger alone. Michikatsu tells Yoriichi everything. He explains who Muzan is and why they need to defeat him, knowing that the future of many lives unborn are in their hands. Yoriichi listens quietly, trusting his brother in a way the original timeline never allowed. In the original timeline, Muzan had met Michikatsu by pure coincidence and exploited his fear of dying and desire to become stronger than his brother. But this time, things are different. Michikatsu has no such fears or motivations anymore, and he knows exactly when and where Muzan would appear. Yoriichi could defeat Muzan alone. Michikatsu knows that, but he knows that Muzan was able to escape death by his brother's hands. So instead of watching from the sidelines like he did in the original reality, he enters the battle with him. The twins fight side by side, and because of Michikatsu's interference, Muzan dies early, and several things never get to happen. Michikatsu never turns into a demon, and Kokushibo is never born. He never kills demon slayers for centuries, and he never faces Yoriichi as a monster soaked in regret. Because Kokushibo was the first of the 12 Kizuki, killing Muza with Yoriichi's help ultimately terminates the possibility of the other Upper Moons ever existing. Hence all the events that occurred which led to the birth of the upper-ranked demons, the Demon Slayer Corps, and even the Hashiras will never need to occur, simply because Muzan was terminated early. With this, all what we already discussed about the other Upper Moons won't even happen, because Yoriichi and Michikatsu have already ended the reign of Muzan. All the Upper Moons, even when they are reborn with their memories, won't even encounter Muzan. Gyutaro and Daki grow up poor but peaceful, living quiet human lives with no encounter with Doma and no path toward demonhood. Gyokko, remembering Muzan's promise, spends years waiting for the Demon King who will never arrive, only to be cornered and killed by the same villagers he once feared. Hantengu continues lying, stealing, and manipulating as he always did, but without Muzan to save him, he eventually rots in prison or is executed for his crimes. Nakime never becomes a demon, ages naturally, lives freely, and without her, the Infinity Castle never exists. Hakuji never becomes Akaza. Instead, he lives a full human life guided by Keiza's teachings, and dies peacefully, surrounded by those he protected. As for Doma, he spends his life preparing and waiting for Muzan to grant him power. But with no Demon King to find him, he grows old as a charismatic but ordinary cult leader, and dies a regular human death, never becoming the monster he once was. And this would be even shocking when the Demon Moons decide to fight each other. So click on this video to see what will happen if the Upper Moons fought each other. Click it.